In this video, we're going to go over the product rule, which is a really useful tool to solve derivatives, which are products of two different functions. So the basic formula for it is any given function f of x, g of x, to take the derivative of that, you would use this formula, f prime of x times g of x plus g prime of x times f of x. And think of it like each function taking a turn being the derivative. So in the first term, the f of x function takes the turn being the derivative, and in the second term, the g of x function takes the turn being the derivative, and vice versa. Now, this also works for functions that are a product of three other functions. So say you have a function that's f of x times g of x times h of x. So if we think of it like each function takes a turn being the derivative, we can derive a formula quite simply. So let's have f of x take the turn. So f prime of x times g of x, h of x, then g prime of x, f of x, h of x, plus h prime of x, g of x, f of x. See, in this one, the f of x is the derivative, g of x is the derivative here, and h of x is the derivative here, whereas the other two functions are just their standard base form. So with that in mind, let's go through a few examples. The hardest part about this is honestly identifying the two functions that are products and knowing which one to use when. Other than that, it's pretty simple. So let's take the function h of x equals x squared times the sine of x. And what's h prime of x? Now remember, h prime, f prime, g prime, they're all ways of denoting a derivative. So let's label our two functions f of x and g of x. We know that x squared is multiplied by sine of x, so those are our two functions. And we can label them like so. So let's say that this is g of x, and let's say that this is f of x. Let's also take the derivatives of those two things. So we have g prime of x, which is the derivative of sine x, so that'll be cosine x. Then we'll have f prime of x, which is the derivative of x squared, which will be 2x. Now, with all our information in hand, let's plug it into the formula and see what we get. So h prime of x equals f prime of x. We know what that is. That's 2x. So 2x times g of x, we know what that is too. That's sine of x. Plus g prime of x, which will be cosine x, times f of x. And f of x is x squared. So as you can see here, this is f of x, this is f prime of x, and this is g of x, and this is g prime of x. So that gives us our final answer using the product rule. And if we want to simplify more, we can factor out an x term, giving us a simplified solution of 2 sine x plus cosine x, which will be our final answer. Let's try another one. So let's have the function m of x, because why not? M of x equals e of x sine of x times 2x squared. Now, as you can see, this is a function that's a product of three other functions. So there'll be this, this, and this. And let's begin to label them. So let's call this one f of x, let's call this one g of x, and let's call this one h of x. And now let's figure out all their derivatives. So f prime of x, we know that the derivative of e to the x, sorry, is e to the x. We know that the derivative of g of x is cosine of x. And we know that the derivative of h of x using the power rule is 4x. So now that we have all of our information, we can begin plugging in into the formula. So let's have f of x take the turn being the derivative first. So we'll have, let me scroll down a bit, we will have e to the x times the other two regular functions, sine of x times 2x squared, plus the second term where g of x is the derivative, cosine x times e to the x, that's fx, and 2x squared, that's h of x. And finally, we'll have h of x be the derivative, plus 4x multiplied by the two regular functions, g of x and h of x. Sorry, g of x and f of x in this case, since h of x is the derivative. 4x e to the x sine x. So now we can see that we have g of x here, we have g prime of x here, and we have g of x here. And we have f prime of x here, f of x here, and f of x here. Finally, we'll have the last function h of x, h of x here, h of x here, and finally h prime of x in this case. So as you can see, the hardest part is identifying each function and their derivatives, and apart from that, everything else is just plugging it into the product rule formula to get a nice, easy answer. Let's also simplify this even further to get a factored answer. So what terms can we take out? We can take out an e to the x term. We can take out a 2x term. So that'll leave us with 2x e to the x times the quantity sine x times x plus cosine x times x plus 2 sine x, which is our final answer for the derivative of this function.